But first and foremost, my name is JP. I am the customer experience specialist at Combyne. I help farmers every day get their combine up and running so that they can better manage their grain marketing. And today we're going to show you how to get started on Combyne during this harvest 2024 season. As I mentioned, we are recording this, and what you're going to be seeing today is a live demo. So I'm actually using a real Combyne setup, an account with real documents that we've created. And as such, chances are something could go wrong. So if we do go sideways at all, be prepared to improvise. Now, the other thing is we are recording, like I mentioned. The portions of the recording that will be made available to people will be just my portions where I'm talking, so you don't have to worry about accidentally appearing in a recording or anything like that. I mentioned my colleague Callum before. Callum is our marketing manager here at Combyne, and he will take any of your questions, organize them into any kind of appropriate times to be asked, or we'll follow up with you later on should that happen if we don't get to those questions right away. But as we get started here, let's begin at the beginning. What is Combyne? So quite basically, Combyne is a crop marketing management tool that helps you track every bushel so that you can make more informed marketing decisions. It's available through the web browser, which is what I'm going to be showing here today. And you can also find it in the Apple Play Store or the Google Play Store if you'd like to have it on your mobile device. In fact, we encourage people to use both the web browser and the mobile device because they sync. They are the one and same accounts, and you can have all your information at your fingertips. Now, one thing about what we're going to go over today, you're going to see here kind of three main challenges that a lot of farmers have when it comes to their grain marketing. First is knowing your marketed position. Combyne helps you kind of stay on top of how much you've sold and what your marketed position is at any given time. And so it's a fundamental tool for you to be able to make smart decisions. Second is staying organized. As you begin to go through your grain marketing and get all your contracts, your load tickets, your scale tickets, or anything like that, you're going to find yourself drowning in paperwork and documents. Combyne helps take all of your document and data management and puts it into one place so you can easily access your data wherever you go. Finally, you're going to learn about how to get some more insights into your farmer's performance or your farm's performance through our financials and profitability section. This is where Combyne really starts to shine, and you can begin benchmarking your performance so you can track your progress to breaking even or your performance year over year as you get going. So we're going to walk through each of these kind of three challenges that farmers face and how Combyne can help address all of them. So let's get started here. What you're seeing right now is my kind of test account. So you're going to see me kind of moving around through the web page here. As I mentioned, we're available on Android and Apple devices as well. So it'll look a little different if you went to the mobile device. But what's great about Combyne is the information is all the same. So you're going to be able to kind of see everything as if you were on your mobile device or on the web. Now you'll see right away that I have my marketed positions from last year. I did pretty well. I 100% sold on my canola, my rye. I oversold a little bit on my wheat, and I'm sure someone can give me a hard time about that later. But this is kind of a snapshot from last year, an overview of what happened in my farm for 2023. But in order for us to kind of confidently know our market position for the crop and commodities that I'm growing this year and about to sell, I first need to add my crops to Combyne to track. So how do we add crops in Combyne? Well, it's quite easy. If I go up to this Add Anywhere button in the top right hand, this is the plus sign here, and I hit Add Crop to Market, I'm going to be taken through the steps of adding a crop. Now, I'm actually going to show something later on about how there are other ways to add crops, including some of the integrations we have, or just as a preview, this CSV file import. But for today and for now, I'm going to add a crop manually, and we're going to kind of pretend that this is the beginning of the year. I'm adding a projected crop. So I'm going to select 2024 projected. So the thing about Combyne that's really great is regardless of what state you're in year-round, you can start managing and tracking your crop sales. So by selecting 2024 projected and hitting next, I'm then going to be taken through the steps of selecting which crop I need to select. Now, in this case, my commodities that I grow are suggested because I've already added them from previous years. But say I wanted to add something new that I've never grown before, I can scroll down and search through it, or I can just simply type in. So let's say I wanted to start growing some yellow peas. Okay, they're right there. Now, say I actually am on an experimental farm, and we're actually going to be growing pink peas. So if I started typing in peas pink or pink peas or pink corn, you're going to see that there's nothing here that represents that. So here's a tip. If you're ever like using Combyne and you can't find your commodity, you can type it in and then hit this request commodity button, and your commodity request will come to me, and we'll get them actually added to Combyne with our development team. But for now, I'm just going to be regular old JP and grow some canola. So I'm going to hit save and finish. Now, we've essentially already created our marketing profile here. That's kind of the big first step. It's easy, it's done. But you're going to notice this is kind of a blank screen for our marketing profile. There is no percentage shown, there's no quantities or anything like that, because what we really need to do to complete this is add our total marketable crop. Now, our total marketable crop is kind of like our inventory, but it's not limited to just what we have on hand. It can include things like our projected harvest. So we use total marketable crop, or you'll hear me call it TMC a lot, to represent that kind of more fungible number that exists within the crops that you're trying to sell. So if I hit add total marketable crop here, it's going to take me to a page where I can simply put in a projected yield. So in this case, for my canola, I'm going to say I grow on 250 acres, and I'm going to say I average about 37 bushels on those 250 acres. And that's going to give me a total down here of 9,250. So that's pretty easy. I'll hit save and finish. And we're back to our profile page. You'll notice the information is a little bit different. We actually have a sold percentage here. Most of the other information is still zeros. And if I ever wanted to look at how I calculated this number, there's this nice little blue link here to show my calculation. This will become important later on as I transition from a projected crop to a harvested crop. But you know what? I've almost forgotten about something. I was smart, and this year I actually did a little bit of forward contracting for my canola, and I actually have already uploaded a file that I forgot to actually attach to anything. So I'm going to show you quickly how I can attach a document to an existing profile. Now, all your files, which we'll dive into deeper as we start to add more and more contracts, are kept in the file section here. When I go there, I'm going to see this canola futures first contract here that I haven't actually added to anything. You can see that it's actually unpriced. So there's a portion of this futures contract that's still unpriced, which is very typical. If I click on it, you'll see here some of the contract details that were previously captured, but also that we have found two commodity profiles that can be linked to. Because this wasn't uploaded before I created my contract or my canola commodity profile, I didn't have anything to link it to. But if I hit link to profile now, I'll actually be presented with that 2024 canola, and I can select it. If I was still selling my 2023 year, I could go back and do that, but obviously that's already at 100%, so I'm not selling any of that crop. I'm going to hit save and finish on this. Now what happens here is I'm immediately given kind of a summary of what was in that contract, so repeating that information, but you'll notice that it tells me now where that contract is linked to, my 2024 canola. So if we actually go and look at that again, we're going to see our market position has updated. So instead of the 0%, we are now at a sold position of 11%. And what you'll see here is that it's pink, or sorry, it's not pink. That was my canola. This is a nice baby blue for an unpriced contract. Now, we will actually present information here that is both priced and unpriced. Unpriced will be our contracts like futures first or our basis first contracts, things that are missing a part of the price. The green price section are going to be things that are fixed, where all the price elements are settled. Now, we track it as being a percentage sold so that you always know how much you've committed and are able to see quickly how much you have left to sell so that you can make those decisions pretty fast. Now, this was us getting one contract or one commodity created. Let's try going and adding some more commodities, because if you remember back in 2023, I had my wheat and rye as well. So we're going to look at adding a few more or a couple more commodities for 2024, but I'm going to do it in a smart way. So actually, I'll show you here quickly. If I was using some integrations like the JD Ops Center or Climate Field View, I could actually go to these precision ag accounts, connect them to my Combyne account, and import directly the information from those farming tools into Combyne. So if Climate Field View is my source of truth for what I've harvested off my fields, I can import it from there. If JD Ops Center is my source of truth, I can use that. But in this case, I'm actually going to use the integration I highlighted before, which was a grain cart CSV file. So when I go to add that, I'm going to hit Add Crop to Market, just like I did before. And I'm going to choose this Import to Grain Cart from Grain Cart CSV file option. But before I do, let me just show you what that actually looks like. So this is a Grain Cart CSV file that's been prepared. I have my rye, my wheat in here. We can see it was about August when I pulled that information. I've set everything up in here to be bushels for my grain cart because that's the default unit that I like. If you are using a grain cart that defaults to metric tons, to kilograms, or pounds, that will become the default unit that Combyne will show to you. So it's important that you make sure to set up your CSV files appropriately. But one thing I do want to draw your attention here to is the destinations. So these are bins on my fictitious farm. So I have a W1 bin, I have a W2 bin, W3 bin for the West Yard, and those are going to become important as I upload this file. So if I go in now back to my Combyne tab and I hit the import button, I'm going to be greeted with a window to select the appropriate file. I'm going to hit open and it's going to start processing. I need to choose which grain cart system I'm using. In this case, I'm using a template from Agromatics LibreCart, and I'm importing for 2024. So I'll hit upload on this and let it process. Now, what we can actually see here right away is that the processing is complete. I'm greeted with an option here to either reject or review that information right away. And so we're going to review our rye for 2024 and show you how quick it is to get set up. Here I have an option. I can either import it as an aggregate total. So this will just be a lump sum associated with my farm, or this is going to actually give me the option to create storage and import the storage information at the same time. I'm going to choose this option because I actually haven't set up my yard bin or my bins for this account, and this is going to be a great shortcut for me setting up my storage. When I choose that option, you're going to start to see some of that information that we had from the CSV file. We have the W1, W2, W3 bins that I mentioned. I'm actually going to select the type of storage they are, which are bins. But you'll notice here we also have support for grain bags or off-farm storage. In this case, since they're all bins, I'm going to select that and confirm and save. Now, one thing you'll notice as I set up the actual physical storage is I have an option here to estimate dockage. So this would be like any shrinkage or dockage that I might assume happens with my grain, and I can actually put that all the way up to like 7%, and it will automatically update that kind of negative number to reflect into the net amount of bushels I have stored on my farm. In this case, I'm going to keep it at 0% and hit save. And here we're kind of going to be walking through the actual signing of where it is on the farm. So we have our stored on farm. This is set up in those bins. If I hit finish here, we'll actually be taken to our marketing profile where our information is starting to get updated. So here you're actually going to see now that we have our quantity just as before, but our storage and delivery status has more information in it because we've actually said how much of the crop we have is on the farm. It's not just projected. We are now harvested. And we can see here we're 0% sold, 100% stored. And if I want to see my stored crop, I can actually just click over here on this arrow, and I'm going to be taken over to our storage tab. And here you'll see those bins I mentioned before. Now, with our storage system, we have something that's a bit of a scalable complexity. So if you don't want to get into the nitty-gritty details of what's in your bins, the specs on your crops in there, or anything like that, you don't necessarily need to. For this case, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper and add a bit more information. So as an example here, I'm going to be able to add a capacity for my bins. And in my capacity, I'm going to say each of these holds about 2,000 bushels. Now, when I add capacity, what this is going to do is it's going to give me a visual representation when I return to my storage of how filled those bins are. So again, at a glance, you can get the information you need. Now, if I say I wanted to add a new bin here, I could easily do so by using this gray add bin button and just fill out the details. Or if I wanted to delete a bin, I just hit the X and it gets rid of it. So I'm going to save these for now. And then one thing I want to actually do is add a bit more detail. So I'm going to drive a little bit deeper here. You can see the capacity added has started to show a visual representation, but I'm going to start adding some specs. So let's take a look here on my rye. I'm going to say the grade is 1, the moisture 12%, and let's say it's organic. Now, say specifically, actually, the rye in bin 1 came from a specific field, and I'm hoping to track that in the future. So I'm actually going to type in here my comment field, field A. Okay. And I'll hit save. And now you'll see that information that I've just entered starts to get surfaced at a higher level. So I can see those specs because I've specified them. If I didn't specify them, we would just see the capacity and basic information. But because I want more information, you're going to see it when you arrive at your bins. Now let's quickly go through and add more of that information here. I'm going to add grade 1, moisture in my second bin is 11.9, we'll say. And let's say this also came from field A, though. So that way I know as I'm delivering on some of my contracts where that grain exactly came from. And let's finish off with our last bin here. This is also grade 1, but the moisture we'll say is 10.5. And instead of field A, this came from field B, we'll say. So these are some of the simple ways that you can use our storage system to kind of add more information that is necessary for you as a farmer. But again, it's optional. You can opt into it. So right away here, we're now seeing kind of that visual representation of the storage on our farm. And while we've now updated and added 2 of our crops and information for 2024 in about 10 or 15 minutes, let's do something a bit more complex. Because as you begin to work on making sales, or if you're talking with your grain marketing advisor about which sales to make, you're going to start dealing with data. You're going to start dealing with more documents, and you have to keep track and stay organized with all that information. And that's another place that Combyne really shines. So let's talk about document and data management in Combyne and what we can do. So the big first thing that we can do with document and data management is simply adding documents. Now you saw the one contract I previewed earlier, my futures contract, but let's start adding more contracts. In fact, I'm going to show you my favorite way to add contracts, and I'm going to add multiple at the same time. I'm going to hit my plus add anywhere button, and I'm going to go down to the add contract option. And here I could go in and add a document manually, but I'm going to choose to upload a file, and I'm going to choose a canola contract I have. But I don't want to stop there. I want to keep going. I'm going to add, let's see here, a rye contract. And let's do my other rye contract as well. And one thing you'll notice that I've been doing is I've been hitting this gray add contract button after selecting the file. This is important because this allows Combyne to know that each of these are separate documents. If I selected a bunch of files and uploaded it as one thing, Combyne's going to assume that's one contract that you are then trying to add multiple pages of, and it will actually only scan the first little portion. So by doing it this way, I've told Combyne to treat each of these separately. I'm going to hit save and finish. Now, while that's kind of uploading, what Combyne Capture, our feature, does, it processes this information. It takes those documents, uses an optical character recognition program to actually read the documents, and it's going to pull out the data that we need in order to better manage our information. And while that's processing, I'm actually going to show you what kind of information it shows by going up and hitting Add Document and adding a manual document. Because this is the fields essentially that will be completed by our OCR process. In here, you're going to see the different contact contract types that we support, including fixed price, basis first, futures first, or target price agreements. And as you select those, the information that is asked from you to complete will change. And so you can, if you want to, sit down at the end of the day for a few hours in your office and do all your data entry. Some people find that relaxing, I guess. I don't know. I don't really find it relaxing. But let's throw that away for a second, because what I actually like to do is look at or get my data automatically entered. So we can see here right away when I go back to the home page that 2 documents have been processed. I'm going to hit review items and begin looking at what has reviewed. So let's start with my canola contract here. I'm going to hit review. And what's going to happen at this stage is we're going to see our PDF file that we've uploaded next to the information that was captured. And then what we can do is begin comparing and contrasting things to make sure that this is correct. So as an example here, I can see it's canola. That was captured correctly. Grade 1, 22 metric tons. Perfect. We even have the contract number, the date, company, and the price. The price information, that's correct. Excellent. That's important. The other important thing here is our freight details. Now, often you'll just have like a delivery month on a contract. We always capture the first and last date when it comes to months and things like that, so that you know the range of delivery that's expected. And once you set up these delivery ranges, you actually get notifications, reminder emails from Combyne letting you know that your details are coming up, or your delivery period is coming up. Now that this has been done successfully, I'm going to hit save here, and it's going to prompt me to go in and select the profile that I'm going to save it against, so this contract. So it's presenting me here with 2 possible profiles, our 2024 profile and our 2023. Now, obviously, I'm not going to apply it to the 2023 because I'm 100% sold there. But even though, again, my canola is still in a projected status, I can apply it. I can do my forward contracting against my 2024 canola. So I'm going to hit save here, and we'll get our summary of the actual document, and I'll hit view marketing. And there you go. Getting back to that marketed position, the knowledge here. I have now seen this get updated from that 11% we were at before to 21% sold. So as I make sales, I can quickly reassure myself about where I am, how I'm doing, and what's going on in my kind of marketed position. So that's one document. Let's go back and look at one of our rye ones. I'm going to go to my document inbox and hit review on my rye contract. So even though this is a fixed price contract, just like before, we have different information that's being captured here. We have our rye commodity, we have 30 tons, a different price, and a different delivery window. Perfect. So we're going to hit save on this. This information is done. So in the time that we went to go and look at even thinking about doing manually, we've now completed 2 contracts getting captured for us. I'm going to apply it to my 2024 rye, just like anything else. And then I'm going to hit save and finish. And now I can go and look at my marketing for my rye and see how I've done. Okay, 28% sold. Now, one thing, because my rye is in a harvested state that I can't see yet, is if I actually am delivering on that contract, I want to track my deliveries and be able to see what's going on. So let's start adding some delivery documents, some load tickets, just like we did with the crop contracts. To do that, I'm going to hit add load ticket instead of add contract. I'm going to then choose the files I want to upload for my load tickets. In this case, I'm going to choose my rye load tickets that I have already. And just like with contracts, I can upload multiple documents at once. Now, what's really interesting about our system of Combyne Capture is while I'm saving and finishing this is what it looks like in terms of the web version, where I'm uploading a PDF, because those have been emailed to me. But what I can actually do on the mobile version is take a picture with my phone and capture the information that way. So if, for example, I have a physical version of my load ticket, I can actually take this and take a picture with my phone to be able to have that information captured. So if I was actually working with some drivers, delivery people that I needed to make sure that information was getting back to me, I can have them take photos on their cell phone and text them to me and stay on top of my paperwork 2 minutes at a time rather than 4 hours at the end of the day. All right, so our load tickets here are ready to review. So let's take a look at those. Now, reviewing a load ticket, very similar to doing any of the contracts. We're just going to look for the information and ensure it's correct. Now, one thing that's interesting about load tickets is I want you to note our gross unload weight versus our net unload weight. These are different values. The net unload quantity is going to get applied to the amount we're delivering on a contract, whereas the gross is actually what comes out of our bins. So in terms of what Combyne's managing, it's managing two things: what you're withdrawing and what you're actually delivering. So you're accurate each time and you know exactly where every bushel is. So I'm going to save this. And just like we assigned a contract to a marketing profile, we're going to assign a load ticket to a contract. So I'm going to choose my rye contract. I'll hit save and finish. And now, because I'm actually delivering grain from a grain that I've set up in terms of storage, I need to select where it's coming from. So I'm going to choose my W1 bin. I'm going to hit save and finish. And then here's a summary of our load ticket. And from here, I don't need to necessarily go back to the home page and find everything. I can actually just go to the associated contract, see the details there, go to my marketing section, and begin to see the updates. So I'm still 28% sold. I didn't sell any more grain, but I'm now about 20% delivered on my grain. So I understand where I'm at and as I'm going. Let's finish off with that other load ticket. If I come back and take a look at it. Now, this is going to be roughly the same information. It's a different quantity, that's for sure, different dockage and moisture amounts. So this is something that we capture. It's an optional feature that if your load tickets or your scale tickets has that information, it'll be captured. But it's up to you how much you want to rely on that information. So while this looks good, I'm going to hit save and finish, select my contract, and what have we done here? So our load ticket actually exceeds the amount left to deliver on our grain. So if I actually just go back here for a second, our load ticket that we were bringing to the elevator was 22, almost 23 metric tons. We only had 8 metric tons delivered left on the contract. So this is something that could happen for a lot of people. Usually not this high of amount that you're delivering an overage, but an overage can happen. And this is something that Combyne has accounted for. So what we were being prompted to do when I hit the save and finish button there is actually allocate that overage. So if you are a farmer and you arrive at the elevator and over deliver on your grain, this is an option for you to be able to assign some of that overage amount to somewhere else. So we're going to hit that allocate overage button. And we could either add a whole new contract, say we came to a new agreement with the buyer, or maybe it's more of a spot sale and we're just doing it impromptu. Let's choose that option for now. And in the spot sale, because it is something that happens very quickly, we have a lot of optional features. So you don't necessarily need a contract number, you don't need the date. The price, even at this stage, could be optional because maybe you're not going to find out till the end when you get your settlement. But in this case, what I like to do, if I can, is I actually added a little bit of a descriptor to my contract number because it's easier for referring to later on. So I put spot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say it's today that I delivered. Actually, I think my load ticket's at the 20th technically. So let's do that. And then the buyer will be the same one, which is my Alberta. Oh, actually, no, this is rye that we're different. A rye depot. It's my rye buyer. Now, typically, spot sales in my experience are less. So I don't know, does anyone know what rye is going for these days if I was to sell it on the an elevator? I think typically it's less than the contract amount that I had before. And I'm pretty sure I had the contract being at like 10 something per bushel, so let's say 9.25. You guys can let me know if that's accurate or not. All right, I'm going to save that. And now this new contract, a spot sale, has been created. It's selected here to apply my overage. So I'm going to hit next. And here is actually, this is an interesting little window because this, if I wanted to, I could actually allocate the different quantities for my low ticket to different contracts. But because we're just dealing with that overage right now, and we just created that spot sale, 100% of it's going there. I'm going to hit save. And now I need to say, just like before, where I unloaded this grain from. So which bins. So I'm going to select my storage. Now, just like before, I'm delivering more than the 8 tons that was left on the contract. So I'm actually going to need to select multiple bins and specify how much is coming from each bin. So in this case, I'm going to simply kind of do the math. We're going to say that 8.8116, how much was left in my W1 bin came from there. And then we're going to say that the remainder came from the other bin, which was 14.3084. And hit save and finish. And then what we're seeing here now is a load ticket, what a load ticket looks like split over 2 contracts. So Combyne has the ability to do these kind of regular everyday instances for farmers when they get to an elevator and keep all that information together. Because what we're looking at here is a way for me to quickly access either contract, the spot sale or the regular contract, to look at the actual physical file of my load ticket all at the same time. So I can navigate quite quickly around from my load ticket to my contract to my marketing profile and be able to see everything right at my fingertips. We can see now that my contract that I delivered on is closed because I've completed delivery on it. I can go quickly to my marketing profile and see that I'm 41% sold and about 40% delivered. So this is a really good way of being able to keep all your information available to yourself and at your fingertips so you can quickly make decisions for the next sale, for what needs to get done next, to keep focused on the jobs at hand that you have, and so that you end up staying organized overall. Now, being able to easily find documents and all that kind of stuff is great. You don't have to go to the stuffed filing cabinet anymore or anything like that. But now that we have that information, now that we've kind of unlocked that information from its paper prison for farmers, what can we do with it for them? How can we play around with it? Because this is the information that they can kind of now use to make better, more informed decisions. And that's where the kind of final part of our financials and profitability section really starts to shine, because this is where all that information gets brought together for us to be able to look at. So I'm going to go to the financials tab, and as you see here, it kind of starts to bring in some of our information. So this is going to bring in our first sales, our average contracts as we do more and more contracts. And then we actually have an element here where you can add a cost of production. Now, this cost of production is meant to be an average per acre, and it's something that often farmers are tracking elsewhere, wherever they're tracking their seeds, their input costs, or their labor, or anything else like that. They have somewhere to add it, and we can have a simple way of adding it here. We simply put in our average cost per acre, number of acres, which was carried over from our projected status, and we can add that in. But before we go into 2024, let's look at 2023 for a second, because this is what my performance was last year. And we can kind of get a nice sense of things at a high level before we dive deeper. So my total profit farm was over here on the right based on the information that I've entered in these first columns. So you'll see my average contract price for my various grain, the average cost, and the profit on the sold crop. Now, I added this by adding in my cost of production. So for my canola, as an example, I put in $437.90 over 250 acres, which gave me my overall cost. But as I go in, I'm going to get more information based on what I've been able to make in terms of profit per bushel and things like that. So at first, I see kind of a summary of my marketed position. So you have that. And then I have different elements here that you can kind of dive deeper on, my revenue. Each time we have a little kind of exclamation mark here, information you can click on to see more information of how it was calculated and what the kind of formulas we're using. Because all of this data belongs to the farmer and they should be able to have it. But because it's with buyer A or buyer B, it makes it really hard to get a total sense of your picture. By putting it all together into Combyne, you can now play with that data. It gets unlocked, like I mentioned. We have a visual representation here of our performance over time. This blue line down here represents the cost of production that we entered, and then the dotted line is our average contract price. So I can see here, you know, my profit on the sold crop was about $5.90 per bushel. So that feels pretty good. If I go to this tab, progress to profit, I actually get to see over the course of the year, when did I actually start to break even? Okay, when did that start to really ramp up? What was my performance like over the year? And so this is really great as a hindsight looking back for 2023. I can remember this information, I can see it, and begin to learn from it, hopefully for next year. Because if we go back and start entering our information for 2024 now, we can start to really get a sense of where we're currently at in our current position. So let's add some costs here. So for my canola, let's say it went up a little bit from my last year, and I'm at 440 now per acre as an average. We'll save that. And then we'll add in rye. Rye I'm much more efficient at. I have a much, you know, more mature system or something like that for keeping my costs down. We're going to say that it's about $1 or 189.77, and I grow on 100 acres. Now, one thing I will mention, all the numbers you've been seeing today, because this is my demo account, I've been trying to keep them as accurate as possible by pulling from different like government sources and stuff like that. But I'm not a real farmer, even though I play one in webinars. And so none of this information is guaranteed, obviously. But now that I've added even just that simple cost of production, what you're seeing here is an immediate kind of report based on that. We only have one contract for each of these commodities, right? So because my average contract price is $12.49, my cost was $11.89. I've made, okay, about $600 on my canola just through forward contracting, which isn't great, but it's at least a profit. My canola, or my rye, is in a much better position. If I go in a deeper dive into my canola here for a second, we can see how tight things really are. So remember those lines I showed before? The blue line here is my cost, my average contract price is here. So in reality, my 60 cents per bushel profit, that's a razor thin margin, isn't it? And I need to be careful to maintain that. So how, as a farmer, would I decide to maintain that? Well, I would need to know exactly what kind of contract pricing is my minimum, my hard stop. And if I go to the progress to profit tab now, we're actually going to see something here that says revenue to break even. Okay, it's no longer going to say profit on the crop. It's going to be your revenue to break even. So this is kind of your like hard line. I need to get $11.82 a bushel in order to break even. Because what our math is doing here is it's taking your unsold amount of canola, your uncommitted amount of canola here, and it's going to see how much is required to get past this 11.80 line cost per bushel. Okay, so it's just doing simple math for you, but that simple math allows you to like frees up your mental space to start making better decisions. Because if you know kind of what your bottom line is, then you're able to be more strategic. You're able to take and consider advice from grain marketing advisors in a more serious way, and people are able to kind of do the right research they need to make the decisions that they fundamentally need to make. Now, this is all, I think, a good fun way to start playing with it, but let's do something a little bit funner, because we've done good news so far. Let's talk about things not going so well. What I like to actually do here is almost run a what if scenario. So we have this set up here, like what if my canola, because it's still a projection here, what if I was wrong? What if the amount of canola that I projected to harvest isn't correct? So I'm going to hit this add harvest totals, and I'm going to begin transitioning from a projected harvest to a harvested physical amount. And so I'm going to add these manually, and I'm going to say it's stored on farm. You'll notice here, it's telling me what my projected was, 9,250. Remember this number. As I go store it on farm, I have an option. I can do the bin level if I want to get back into that. But for now, I'm going to hit this aggregate total and just keep it as a lump sum. And let's say instead of that 9,250, I only grew 8,000 bushels. All right. I'm going to hit finish. Now our marketing status is updated. We're no longer at that like 21-ish%. We're at 25. So a quarter of my crop has been sold or committed, which means I have less to play with. Now, what this also means is I've invested the same amount of money in terms of cost of production, but gotten less out of it. So that cost of production amount, I'm paying that per acre. That's my average. And I've already invested in that. I made that decision early on to get the fertilizers I needed or anything like that. But in this case, I've now gotten less from it. So let's go and look at our financials to get a sense of our situation. All right, we can see right away, we're starting to lose money, okay? Instead of a profit, a razor thin margin on our crop, we are now losing $1.26 per bushel. Our cost of production line here is higher. You'll notice that average cost of production is actually up $13.75 now instead of the $11.89 it was or something like that. And that's simply because we've been able to harvest less, right? So even though some of the things in our world have stayed the same, because that yield is less, we now have to change our marketing decisions. We have to be responsive to the market and to our own kind of production. So let's fast forward now. And I'm going to just kind of blur through a few things. I'm going to add some more contracts for my canola and see if we can get into a better position. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to add a couple contracts at a time using that add another contract button. I'm going to hit save and finish. And while those are processing, let's take a look at one of the other features that a lot of our farmers love, which is our little delivery section here. So on deliveries, this is kind of a summary of the open contracts we have. And because those dates that I referenced during the different contracts we added are important, we actually get a visual representation of where we should be making deliveries and how much it should be. And because all those contracts have a cash value assigned to them, we can actually change this over to cash flow and get a little bit more information based on the cash flow that's happening. So our files should be done processing. Oh, they're still going here. Let's see how it's going. Sometimes our OCR, depending on volume. So we've invested a ton in our OCR recently, and we've got it to a point where it's very effective at capturing things. But as volume has increased, as our numbers of new signups have increased, there's always the potential for demand to begin moving around some of our documents and taking a little bit longer to process. Ah, but they're ready now. Perfect. All right, so let's finish this. So you'll see here, these are all different amounts, different dates, different prices, but I'm going to quickly move through saving them and applying them so that we can get a quick sense of what's going on. Let's do my last one here. Let's save this and apply it. And let's go back to our marketing quickly. Okay, yeah. So now, fast forward later in the year, we're 84% sold. Maybe we weren't paying too close of attention to those contract prices. We weren't using Combyne correctly. Let's see how we did overall. Okay, we're in a worse situation. Well, relatively per bushel the same. But you can see here, because I didn't fundamentally change the way I was making decisions on my marketing, I have gotten myself into a tougher situation. And if we look now, because now I only have about 1,300 bushels left to market, the price I need to break even is even higher, $17 a bushel, which is likely not feasible in today's market. And so this is kind of the power of this situation. Even though it's a bit of a gloomy outlook right now, often farmers need to know the bad news so that they can make the right decisions they need to make down the road. And that's the reality of our situation, right? And so there's no need to gloss over it. There's no need to whitewash it or anything like that. That's just how it works for being a farmer. And so with Combyne, what people are able to do is kind of keep all that information at their fingertips and hopefully transition and begin making the decisions that are right for them. So they can know their market position, know how much they've sold, and prevent overselling. They can keep organized with all those documents in one place and have that data to play around with. And with our financials and profitability features, you're able to begin that benchmarking and hopefully not do what I did and just go through the year, go through the motions, but instead start making different decisions as you're going. Now, one thing that we're going to finish off with here is everyone who's joined us here at Combyne, in our webinar, we're going to send along a message to with a discount to sign up for Combyne for an annual new accelerator plan. So watch your email inboxes for that information. We'll also include some of the kind of content that we went over here today, some videos, and some of the stuff as a write-up. I don't think we got any questions in the chat. So before I let everyone go, I'm just going to open the floor if there are any questions. Okay, so George, you're asking, when entering total harvested production, how does it allocate which bin it is in? So this is actually something that you can allocate. So if I am adding a, so as an example, we did our canola here, but we did it as an aggregate total, right? So if I actually wanted to go in and say, process my hard winter wheat here from my CSV import, because that information has come from the CSV, it's automatically going to be added into the different bins that's happening. But I can quickly show you, if I do it in aggregate total instead, and just say, okay, this is the total amount of bushels from my bins, I can hit confirm and save. And then I need to go to my marketing section where that wheat has been added. Right here, okay? So we can see it's been added. There's my 2,851, but there's nowhere that it's been set up yet. So I'm going to hit start tracking. And this is going to be much like adding it manually. I'm going to hit stored on farm. And instead of this aggregate total, right? We chose that before for the canola. We are going to do add up from individual bins or grain bags. So in this case, I can add, let's just do grain bags for now. I'm going to say I have a couple on the farm, and I'll call it bag 1 and bag 2. And this is very much the same for bins, but what you'll see here is like the difference in, we'll say 1,000. Yeah. And then the other quantity was 2,000 or 1,851. So bins or bags operate very similar to bins. So I get to basically just say how much is going into each one, and then I'll save it. The only difference is with a bin, we allow you to add a whole bunch of different specs, whereas with the bags, they kind of stay as that kind of more lump sum, since we expect you not to be moving it around as much. So what you'll see here, the grain bags now are entered in our storage like this. So you can actually, if you wanted to, before you've even added any of your crops, some of the farmers that I talk to that have a lot of like complex storage setups, so it's like 70 bins or something like that. What we actually do is we start by adding their bins by creating a new yard and then adding all those details down here like that beforehand. Does that answer your question? Perfect. Excellent. Cool. Well, if you guys do think of anything else while you're kind of perusing or playing around with Combyne, feel free to give me a shout. You can contact me at help at combyne.ag, or if you visit our website, there'll be a contact form there under the contact us that comes back to me. But I'll be in touch soon with a follow-up email providing our discount code. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you again soon.